Update on Drew sample.
Yeah, Drew, it'd probably be a couple weeks with him. So, kind of probably dodged a pretty big bullet there, but it'll be a couple weeks.
Just left knee?
Yep. Yeah, just got rolled up. It's hard to see on the tape. It's hard for him to remember exactly how it unfolded, but so we'll just get him some rest and see where it goes from there.
So no serious structural damage?
Just a couple weeks.
Father-in-law Mike Sherman was at practice yesterday, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting talking football with him. How much football do you guys talk?
When we talk, that's oftentimes things we'll talk about, and he's got a ton of experience. He's been in my shoes before, so great sounding board there, and so it's good to have him back in the facility. For 2 years he wasn't able to come in here like everybody else. So I think the last time he was in my office was when we played New England a couple years ago. That's the last time I remember, So for him and my son, he's taking my son up to Canton today and tomorrow for the Hall of Fame, all those ceremonies, and so he's got a player that's going in that was invited him, so he's going to take Brooks up there. So that's why he was in town, and they're headed up there now.
What's the next step for Burrow?
Next step for Burrow?
For Burrow, coming back.
Yeah, we'll just take it day to day with him, see how he feels.
Coach, that play would be Leroy Butler, is that right?
Yes.
With Burrow, I was just curious, would there be any thought of having him call plays or do something like that to get him more engaged in practice?
I think I don't think that's necessary for him. It's, I think he's been pretty locked in and focused, and he's in the meetings and helping lead some of the meetings like he was today. And so he's been plenty engaged, and I don't think we need that to stimulate him. He does a pretty good job of that.
Is he, since he's in the building now, are you able to put at least a plan together behind the scenes of what?
Just to take it day to day based on how he feels, and so we'll progress. And hate to put a timeline on it, and just again, he's getting a lot of good mental work right now.
How does he feel?
You'd have to ask him on that one. I hate to speak for him.
Your receiving core, yesterday's practice, top to bottom, I think there might have been one drop pass in the drill of I don't know how many throws that I saw. Guys are really, first thing you have to do is catch the football. They seem to be pretty good in that department.
Yes, I did think they did a nice job. The routes on air, the ball wasn't on the ground. So that's the standard is there's no one covering you. It should be that way.
Right.
Sometimes it's easier said than done, but our guys are really locked in and focused, especially in the individual portion of things, where we're trying to get in the run of the work before we go to team activities. I think our guys have been really dialed in and focused, and it's not just let's get through this time. It's, let's try to make ourselves better. And the coaches do a good job pushing them during that. And so I've been proud of the work that we get done during those periods.
Yesterday wasn't the best day for the offense, but the short yardage segment seemed to have gone well. How happy were you to see that, considering how much you guys have kind of stressed and emphasized that over the offseason?
It's easy to the note you finish on is typically how I feel walking off the practice field, and that note wasn't a great one yesterday with really the penalties, and when you're not doing live contact, you probably at the end of the day shouldn't even call a run because everything's a 0-yard gain, allegedly. Watch the tape. I didn't totally agree with all of them. As a play caller, I definitely didn't agree, but it's good work for everybody. I thought the defense really did a good job. They played with great energy. They communicated really well. Offensively, there was some good stuff leading up to that period. It's really the penalties is what ends up bothering you the most at the end of the day. And so that stuff we got to clean up, which we will. It's sometimes you need some of those hiccups to be able to refocus our energy on some things that maybe you're talking more schematic stuff and you lose track of some of the pre-snap penalties, and it's good to refocus on that and revisit it. And it's everybody. It's not just one guy 2 or 3 times. It was about 8 guys at one time. And so that's good for us to be able to refocus there.
Do you need Lyle Collins to get snaps in the preseason to feel good about him week 1?
You'd like him to get practice snaps. I don't need him to take preseason game snaps, no.
Looking at your offense, how important is it, or why is it so important to have some interchangeability with your receivers and where they line up and the routes they run and everything they can do?
We're fortunate that we've got just really the way that our concepts work and we teach the concepts. You should be able to play anywhere and understand the routes. Now, whether you want to put some guys in the slot or leave some guys outside, that's kind of our game plan adjustments we make there. But we get our guys work at all the positions. They can be outside as a 1, in the slot as a 2 and a 2x2, inside at 3 and a 3x1. we do some empty stuff, and so guys got to understand where to line up and what different routes to run based on the concepts. That's backs included, that's tight ends. So, we structure a lot of that in what we call group install, where it's essentially 6 on 0. And that's where we get a lot of work of moving guys around and making sure they're having to think critically before we put them out there and do it in a team period. So, I think our guys handle that stuff really well, and it allows us to be flexible when it comes to games in terms of matchups we may think we create that we like that week, and our guys have usually responded to that really well.
It seemed to me that the points of emphasis that you get from the officials yesterday at practice would be more on the defensive side of things, as opposed to like a false start is false start,
right?
Procedure is a legal procedure. Is that the case? And what did you kind of glean from that?
Yeah, I think so. Some of the contact stuff with some new guys. I think Tyson Anderson had a one-on-one yesterday where he got flagged for illegal contact, and so it's good just educating some of those younger players on some of the things that maybe are different from the college level. This crew has done a great job of if a player's got a question, if a coach has a question, ask it. That's what they're here for. You can spend plenty of time doing it. I know a lot of players have done that. I know a lot of coaches have asked them to sit in meetings to help explain some situations. So you got to use it as a resource and as a learning tool, and I think our staff and our players have done a really good job of that.
What did they tell you was their point of emphasis, Coach? What did they say was their point of emphasis? What are they trying to do?
They showed us the video that I think they've shown every single team this year, and refocusing again on the taunting stuff. What constitutes taunting and what they called last year and what they didn't. So again, they've done a great job. The focus has been on some of these pulls as well. You got the cardiac caps on to help prevent some of the concussion stuff, but at the same time they're trying to eliminate guys at positions maybe they haven't flagged in the past of leading with the helmet as well. Those have been conversations that have been ongoing for a number of months there. So there's some kickoff return looks that they covered yesterday. So it's just good to get them out there and get the guys with some flags out there, because coaches have been officiating the first couple of weeks, and now they've got real officials to go out there and do it.
How's the progressing in general? Obviously, we've seen him on the practice field.
He's making good progress.
Troy said yesterday that the biggest difference between Jamar at this point last season and this year is his knowledge of the playbook and how much it's allowed him to play faster. When you were talking about being able to move guys around in practice, how much does his knowledge of the playbook and just the overall confidence and his speed this year allow more for you guys to design plays for him in this time of the season?
Yep. That probably last year he's first round pick. There's a lot to learn, and so now he seemingly to me much more comfortable. I didn't think he was uncomfortable last year, but now he seems really confident lining up anywhere and asking him to do anything. And hey, remember we called this motion for you against the Jets. Oh yeah, I remember. Oh, that's what we're going to call it again this training camp. We maybe haven't done it in 10 months. So he's had really good recall that week. Recall on some of that stuff that's helped us continue to move him around earlier this year than we would have last year. Last year we probably lined him up more in X, played him a little bit in the slot, and then as the season progressed, moved him around a lot more. This year you can do that from day one.
What was your message about dealing with expectations? I'm sure inside you guys have always had expectations, but now there's outside pressures. How do you get your guys to deal with that?
Yeah, that's been that's why it's about us is written all over our walls, everywhere we are, because there's always going to be different pressures externally, whether it's negative or positive, and you got to learn how to tune that out. You would just pay attention to the people that are inside this building that see the work that's being put in. We've got our own expectations. So you got to find ways to manage the outside noise, because for a couple of years it was negative and now it's positive, and it doesn't matter. You can't stoop to it or try to raise to it, because we've got our own standard that we set. And our guys, I think, do a really good job of that. It's impossible to block out the internet. That's not feasible. So guys have to learn how to manage that the right way, and just focus on what we talk about here in the building and what their teammates talk about. We focus on that.
What's the biggest advantage in your eyes of Jamar being in the slot, or you started talking about moving around, but particularly if you had him on the inside compared to him just being on the outside where we saw him so much last year?
Well, he could be an every down slot receiver if you really wanted him to. Some teams maybe would have had two guys they wanted to leave outside and played him as a slot receiver. We've got TB, so now you got two guys that can do that role as well. But defensively, to be able to move a guy around so they can't hone in on where he's at. And call their coverages. Maybe it's just zone coverages. You can't just always know where he's going to be. He's always going to be the outside receiver, and so we're always going to call this zone coverage. Or, if it's man, then they got to travel guys around. Sometimes corners don't like to play inside. Sometimes they do a really good job playing outside the numbers, and they don't love getting mixed in there. That's what the nickels are for. So there's a lot of different ways, depending on the defense, depending on the defensive personnel you're facing, that you can try to stress the defense, try to stress the play caller, try to stress their personnel, and Jamar's comfortable doing all of it.
You guys speculate when you're going through the offseason, do you speculate you'll see more traveling corners this year with him, just considering?
You can make arguments for about every different scheme,
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we feel like we've got a really good receiving core that puts pressure on you. And so you feel like we're comfortable with whatever it looks like because our quarterback does a good job distributing it to the open receiver and whoever's got the best matchup and not forcing balls. So, you feel like you're at a good place there in terms of how you can attack people.
Since you've been in the league, how have you seen the slot evolve? How has it kind of changed? It seems like it's kind of changed the last 3 years. You almost get anybody in there now. There's no kind of a set.
Yeah. I don't know. You've taken me back to my Miami days now. We had Armand Benz in there for a while, a name that's familiar here. He was a big slot that did really well, and then had an injury that took him out of there. And we had Devon Bess, who was much smaller, but he was quick and had great hands. So to me, it hasn't really evolved. It's who is your slot, and there's different body types that you might have that year. Brandon Gibson was another one we had there. Bigger, he's more like TB size, really, to be honest with you. So it's whatever style of guy you got, and you fit your system around that, try to make the most of it. And so it's hard for me to use the word evolved. It's just different depending on who you got playing that role for you.
What does this mean for defenses? Like, you face a guy like Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl, obviously can play outside, inside. Like, how does that affect the style of defense, looking at the types of slot receivers there are?
Yeah, you got to be accountable for the premier players, and so Cooper's a guy you got to be aware of where he's at all times, and have plans for him. And it can be more difficult when a guy moves around from inside to outside to the backfield to wherever, to where all hands are on deck on where he's going to be. So that can provide some challenges sometimes.
Do you think it's beneficial for the team in general and the guys to see Joe out there at practice, even though he can't participate right now?
They see him inside. They see him in here in the locker room. They see him in the meetings. So I can't speak for them, but his presence is always. We get excited to see him around. He's our quarterback, so it's good to see him around.
With all the weapons you have here, Zach, has that at all changed the way you approach scheming game plans offensively over the years, like you were referencing going back to your Miami days?
Yeah, we've got a lot of talent, and so you can look at it a lot of different ways. Let's move them all around and have them all do a ton of different things and really stress defenses, or let's find some things we're really good at because we got great talent and we like our matchups. And so let's make sure that they have full confidence in the things that we're asking them to do, and let's do those things really well. We're probably somewhere in between, of just trying to hang our hat on concepts we love. And, yeah, you may know we're doing it, but we feel like we're good enough at it and talented enough to where we can do it, and it'll be hard for people to stop us. And also moving our guys around to make it challenging so you don't know exactly where we're going to be at all times. So there's a balance there. Some defenses don't care that you move them all around. They're going to play their stuff, and some do. And so sometimes all this stuff is overstated. Sometimes it's understated. Who knows? Depends on who you ask. But we feel like there's a lot of flexibility with all the guys that we have. That's why they're here, and so it gives us a lot of options as offensive play callers.
Last year you said you really wanted the offense to be more explosive. That was kind of your theme last year. What would you say your theme heading into this year is for the offense?
Be more explosive. It's you want to be a quick strike team. It's some games are bloody games, and you need them to feel like you could just try to take the top off and score at any moment. You always need that fear in the back of the defense's minds. And at the same time, you got to be able to grind it out sometimes. Like I think of our first Raiders game, that was a grind it out. I don't care what the score was. That wasn't what it felt like. And that was a different style of game. Denver was a different style of game. So we're prepared. Our guys, the guys that have been here have seen us play a lot of different styles of ball to try to find wins. We know this year will be no different. So you got to be ready with every phase of your offensive game plan, and you never know when you're going to need a certain area in a certain game. And I think our guys are willing to do whatever it takes to find a win.
In your talks with Darren, is the competition for punting going to come down to what happens in the preseason games, or is that also is what is happening in practice just as important?
It's all part of it. The practice and the games, it's all part of it. We'll use every rep, to go into account here.
What have you seen from Evan? And he's obviously making, regardless of who's holding and who's snapping, but what have you seen from him working with different guys?
Yeah, he's been very consistent. I know his statistics, but I won't reel them off for you today, but he's been really consistent. He's done a nice job coming back in year 2 and being focused and trying to continue to improve. And Darren's probably better at the exact logistics there, but he's done a really nice job for us.
Has Jackson taken a step forward in the left guard competition?
I think all those guys need to continue to grow there. It's that's the beauty of training camp. We've only been in this will be our third day in pads. And so for those guys, it's there's a long ways to go to evaluate these guys, and they need to keep making improvement every single day. I mean, everybody watched yesterday. It wasn't good enough in any area on our offense yesterday, for sure. So we'll continue to give those guys reps and see where their growth comes.
I'm sure you've laid out every day of your schedule for training camp besides weather potentially. What might cause a deviation, or are you like, I'm going to try to stay with this?
Lightning's the only deviation that's really been thrown at us. The weather, you have to take advantage. We had our walkthrough. It's good to focus with the conditions. Hopefully it rains some during practice today, because honestly, we don't know the next time it rains. It may be week 1 against Pittsburgh. It may be December in a critical divisional game. You never know. And so that's the challenge for our guys, is take advantage of this. We might not ever get it again until it matters most. And so, I thought that was a good focus for our guys yesterday. It was the longest practice of the year. It's the most reps we got. It's how do you handle yourself mentally? What's your body language like? How are you handling adversity? Today would be another challenge if it does rain. I hope it does. Hope it doesn't lightning. That throws us off. But in terms of deviating from the schedule, we're really on pace. We're going to have everything installed for the first preseason game to where our guys can go out there and operate all the different situations that could occur with confidence. They've heard it. They've studied it. And then we'll continue to get more reps at that as the weeks go by after that first preseason game.
Coach, the same format today, kind of on the different situations, but you're going to keep score?
There's no, not today. Not today. That's not an everyday thing. Today we don't have any unscripted call-up periods. Today is all organized. Today's more of I won't get into all that, but today's scripted stuff.
But it won't be like yesterday?
No.
Brooks ever been to Canton?
Brooks has never been to Canton. No, I've recruited up there, but I've never. No, I take that back. I coached in the Hall of Fame game, Dolphins versus Cowboys, in I don't know what year it was, but so I have a lifetime pass to the Hall of Fame there. I lost it. I hope they have my name on record, but I have a lifetime pass to get in there. Yeah, I think everybody gets one for that coaches or plays in the game. Could be a mistake. Maybe they stopped that. Now maybe I'm creating an issue here, but.
If you win 300 games, they'll let you in.
Who's done that? Yeah, a couple guys. Yeah.
Is he pretty pumped?
Yeah, he's pumped. I don't think he understands the magnitude of what this is. I tried to explain it to him. He's 11. He was more concerned about catching kickoffs from Evan McPherson yesterday. But I tried to prep him to understand this is a big moment for these guys. This is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to them. And so when they're giving the speeches, find a way in your 11-year-old brain to appreciate it. And he just keeps asking, are the kids going to be there? And I'm like, I can't answer that, buddy. So I look forward to hearing how it goes for them.
Is he going to wear the McPherson jersey every
No
day?
jerseys. We're going to dress a little nicer, for these events. I had to make sure he wore matching socks. That was big. So that's he usually wears the Bengals themed socks, and I said no Bengals. We're just going to wear white socks to this event. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.